The meeting of the Board of Regents, State of Iowa for September 13th, 2018 will come to order. I will begin by calling the roll. Regent Bates.
Present.
Regent Butker.
Present.
Regent County will be here. Regent County is present. Regent Dakovich. Absent. Regent Dunkel.
Present.
Regent Johnson.
Present.
Regent Lindemeyer.
Present.
Regent McKibben.
Present.
Regent Richards is present. We have a quorum and the meeting can proceed. Let's see here. We'd like to recognize Representative Mary Mosher. Where is she? There you go. Thank you. At this time, we will have a public comment before the board. The board recognizes the opportunity for expression of public views on issues that come before the board is an important part of its deliberations. Each presenter is limited to 3 minutes of time. We will now open the microphone for the first presenter.
Kate Chenis.
Hello. My name is Kate Chenew, and I am a senior at the University of Iowa. I have spent the past 3 years here studying human rights and what it means to respect and to promote them. I learned here at the University of Iowa that while I study human rights, and while lawyers and legislators and politicians advocate for those rights, the most important piece of the equation is for people to know about those rights. Otherwise, what is the point of having these rules, these laws and debates about the rights of people, such as workers in Iowa? The president of our university, Bruce Harold, makes $590,000 a year, and when he began at the university in 2015, he was set up with a 5-year deferred compensation plan that has an annual contribution of $200,000 per year, bringing his total annual income to $790,000 per year. The total 2018 budget for the Labor Center was $557,000. This is a tiny portion of the budget for the University of Iowa, and one that has helped to educate and protect thousands of hardworking Iowans for more than 50 years. Additionally, people who take classes through the Labor Center pay registration fees for access to those classes. The Labor Center has also brought in funds from highly competitive grants during its 67 years of existence. The Labor Center teaches classes and provides resources on campus that are important to many students' academic studies, such as Iowa law students studying employment law and graduate TA students as well. Many of the workers taking Labor Center classes are parents of students, and this is pitting students against their parents. It's not efficient to cut valued educational services while raising tuition. That's paying more and getting less. Real efficiency takes analysis. Workers can be students. They aren't less deserving of access to education, and they pay taxes that support the university. As a middle-class Iowan, I have been fortunate to grow up with many opportunities, such as being able to attend college. However, I am the oldest of 5 children who all want to someday go to college as well, and I work year-round to be able to attend school here. Many students also work in jobs across our community. Most will enter the workforce after graduation, and they need to know how to understand and defend their workplace rights to combat harassment, discriminations, and other hazards. This isn't a question of resources, it's a question of priorities. Will this become a private country club, or will it recommit to being a public university with a public mission, bringing high-quality, lifelong learning to the people of Iowa? Thank you.
Okay, great. Good morning. I'm Bill Gerhard. I'm the president of the Iowa State Building Construction Trades Council. The Building Construction Trade Council is the statewide umbrella organization for the 16 different crafts that perform construction work here in Iowa. A little bit about myself. I have a BA degree from the University of Iowa. My wife has a PhD degree from here, and we have an 18-year-old son that's a freshman this year. So we feel a connection to the University of Iowa. We certainly feel like we're part of the Hawkeye family. The University of Iowa Labor Center and their labor educators just last year taught people from 70 different counties in Iowa. And for those people that went to the classes, many of them, the highest degree they've got is a high school diploma. But they felt a connection to the University of Iowa through the Labor Center. And what that has done is engendered goodwill and a lot of respect for the University of Iowa by people all over the state. They actually felt like they were connected to the University of Iowa. And that's one thing we want to continue with. We have 3 state universities here in Iowa, and we have 26 small colleges and private colleges. They all have business schools, business departments. They teach business classes. They teach people how to become the businessmen of the future. There's only one place in Iowa where workers can go to get the education they need for job site issues and job site problems and everything. That's the University of Iowa Labor Center. We'd like to see this continue on. I want to thank Dean Washburn. He's been meeting with us to see if there's a pathway to make this happen, to help us look at other options and opportunities. And I think there is. He's been extremely helpful, and we're going to continue meeting with him to see what we can do. The Labor Center, Save Labor Center Coalition has held a series of hearings, public hearings throughout the state, 8 of them total. Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, Quad Cities, Burlington, Waterloo, Des Moines, Sioux City. And we've had a tremendous turnout of people that have showed up there to give their support to the Labor Center, people whose lives have been touched by the University of Iowa Labor Center. And what's being passed out, thanks to Josh here, is a package for each of you that has the petitions signed by those people, over 2,500 people. I was told today there's more petitions coming in daily. So we need to keep the Labor Center open. It does good work. It's needed more now than ever. So thank you.
Michael Reyes. Michael Reyes.
Good morning. My name is Michael Reyes. I'm from the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC. I serve as the state director for Iowa, representing over 18 councils located throughout the state with a membership of about approximately 600 members. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak today. A little bit about LULAC. We are the largest and oldest Latino civil rights organization in the United States. We have over 1,000 councils located throughout the United States and Puerto Rico. I'd like to take the opportunity to read a letter that I sent to the university once we learned of the potential closing of the Labor Center. From the League of United Latin American Citizens of Iowa, Subject University, Iowa Labor Center and LULAC. To President Bruce Harold, Dean Kevin Washburn, and the Iowa Board of Regents. It is with great concern that we learned of the plan to permanently close the University of Iowa Labor Center. The Labor Center has worked with the Iowa LULAC over the past decade on a range of issues: civil rights, social justice, workers' rights, voter rights, and many more important issues. Knowledge we've gained through labor educators has informed our organization's ability to help educate rights of Iowa Latino families when faced with economic, social, and political injustice. When President Harold says the University of Iowa can only spend money that comes from student tuition on programs that benefit students, Does he presume that the workers' rights, do not benefit families of these students? One of LULAC's core missions is education. LULAC has, through the years, provided hundreds of thousands of dollars in educational scholarships to Latino students planning to attend or attending the University of Iowa. Last year alone, over 25 entering freshmen and undergraduate students received financial assistance through our LULAC scholarship program. As a newcomer to Iowa, you might not be aware that Latinos are the only reason that the population of Iowa is growing and not in steep decline. The children of these new Latino immigrants, as well as those whose families have lived in Iowa for many generations, are the future students and future students of the University of Iowa. Latino students are attracted to the University of Iowa and the College of Law. This interest is often based on witnessing injustice of their parents and family in the workplace. Latino students, many of whom are first-generation college-bound, have parents and families that work in the most hazardous, low-paying occupations where workers' abuse is prevalent. For these reasons mentioned above, we strongly urge that you keep the Labor Center open because of its value to in many ways that contribute to the Latino communities across Iowa. Signed, Michael R. Reyes, State Director for Iowa. And one last comment. The Labor Center, the educational outreach that they provided our community is invaluable. I can't say enough about the support that they have provided us. So with that in mind, I would ask that the university reconsider the closing of the Labor Center. Thank you.
Daphne Daniel.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for your time. My name is Daphne Daniel, and I recently graduated from the College of Law. I am not a native Iowan, but after being here for over half a decade and bragging to everyone about how awesome the sweet corn is, I've come to consider myself, if not an Iowan, at least a true Hawkeye. After graduating from the College of Law, I, like many of you probably know, was a recent law graduate and thought I knew everything. Everything I needed to know, I learned in law school, and whatever I didn't know, I could look up online. That's the case until I went to the Labor Center's FMLA course. During that course, I not only got to learn about FMLA, but I got to learn about the issues facing Iowa's workers. I got to talk to union organizers and people who I probably would have never met in my daily course of life. And when I think about closing the Labor Center, it pains me to say that it's closed-minded and really just unoriginal. The Labor Center is such an asset. The Labor Center is a part of the law school, and at a time when the legal education system is looking for ways to innovate, the Labor Center is Iowa's key to innovation. We can create a policy lab that will not only be the first in the Midwest, but the first in the nation, one that focuses on labor law and employment law. I want you to really think about what it means to be an Iowan. I know for sure that Iowans are so proud of being first in the nation. This is your chance for us to be first in the nation. Please do not let this opportunity pass us by a short-sighted decision, a short-sighted move, a short-sighted action that will tarnish the legacy of the University of Iowa. The Labor Center not only helps undergraduates, it has the potential to help many graduates, countless people, our neighbors, our faculty, our staff. Please reconsider and save the Labor Center. Thank you.
Lucas Despain. Lucas Despain.
Good morning. My name is Lucas Despain. I'm a United Auto Workers member and a staff representative. I began my affiliation with the UAW as a welder at John Deere Harvester Works in the Quad Cities, building the big green combines you'll soon see throughout cornfields across the state. I value and strive for a pragmatic relationship between workers and managers and believe amicable settlements exist for even the most difficult challenges in the workplace. My present assignment is to provide support to workers in Iowa and Illinois, including approximately 7,000 at facilities in Dubuque, Waterloo, Des Moines, Ottumwa, Burlington, and Davenport. The production and maintenance employees at John Deere, C&H, Champion provide me the opportunity, if not the obligation, to speak to you today. Over the last 10 years, I've attended various labor center events here at the UI campus and at other locations. The education and information received from the University of Iowa's Labor Center has had a strong impact on me and an even greater impact on the workers I represent. I'd like to share a quick example of what happens when workers don't know their rights. One winter years ago, a coworker named Kyle was in a severe car accident and had to take periodic leave afterwards to receive medical treatment. He had multiple injuries, but perhaps the worst was the frostbite on his hands and his feet. That plagued him years later, especially after a 10 or 12-hour shift of building heavy equipment. The company fired Kyle due to absences related to his accident. We didn't know then that he should have been covered under provisions of the Family and Medical Leave Act. Under the law, he was eligible to receive the medical care he needed without losing his job. Kyle ended up filing charges against the company, and a problem that could have been resolved in-house ended up resulting in a costly DOL investigation process. It's much more effective to educate workers and employers so that they can solve issues in-house before they become a crisis in people's lives and a big legal issue. By educating workers like me here at the Labor Center, Iowans are provided resources, guidance, and advice they otherwise wouldn't have. After Kyle's experience, we've sent dozens of workers to the class of the FMLA class here and have been able to intervene and solve issues like this as soon as they come up by working with management rather than that escalating to a bigger conflict. Through these discussions at my work site, management realized they were erring in administering the law and sought out training on the act themselves. Laws mean nothing when you don't have the knowledge, training, or capability to enforce them. The Labor Center has been an asset to working Americans, Iowans specifically, their families and communities in which they live for decades by educating and empowering these workers, benefiting not only those workers, but their families and their communities. Through the courses and lectures I've attended, I've been better able to advise workers on how to improve their workplace, but also to recognize when an employer is following the law and a worker doesn't have a legitimate case. In fact, I have several relatives who are small business owners and some managers who call me when they have a need to clarify their obligations to workers under the Act. Yes, there will be people like Kyle who fall through the cracks. We'll never hear of them and never be able to help them. But thanks to the Labor Center, there's fewer than there otherwise would have been. Though not a traditional student, I'm connected to this university through the Labor Center and consistently encourage workers I come across to attend classes here. And I was shocked when the university announced its plan to close the Labor Center and disgusted to find out the administration failed to seek input from staff, faculty, students, or the thousands of workers each year, who rely on the Labor Center to access research and education. Labor, faith, campus, and civil rights groups came together across the state, forming the Coalition to Save the Labor Center, holding 7 or 8 public hearings across the state. Over 600 Iowans attended, 150 provided testimony, and of the important impact the Labor Center has had on them, their workplaces, and their communities. We've compiled reports. They're here from across this state. Please review them. Let those voices be heard. The commentary captured in these reports is from Iowans of a variety of backgrounds, all demanding the Labor Center continue providing its valuable public service for decades to come. Thank you.
Jennifer Shearer.
Good morning. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and it's good to see all of you in person, and I'm here partly to put a face on the person who's sending you emails. So I'm Jennifer Shearer. I'm here in my capacity as a director of the Labor Center to mostly let you know that my staff and I want to make ourselves available to share any information you need about the Labor Center as this discussion proceeds, and to just share a little bit about my understanding of the Labor Center's longstanding mission, which you've heard a fair amount about already this morning, and so that lets me cut some of my time down. I'm also here as a UI graduate myself, who has a deep love for this university and the state of Iowa, and clearly a personal and professional stake in the university's reputation and its future success. My staff and I have been proud to be ambassadors for the university to communicate to communities all across the state. And I think as you've heard this morning, we conduct 70 to 100 different education programs a year, typically reaching over 2,000 working Iowans from an average of 70 different counties, which we hope is a significant contribution to the UI's engagement, outreach, and statewide visibility efforts. And here on campus, in tandem with efforts to increase student retention, we have gladly stepped forward in recent years to develop first-year seminars and general education courses, and to increase experiential learning and student internship opportunities. We share the UI's commitment to a diverse and inclusive campus, and for that reason, we really strive to serve as a bridge to working-class communities, rural communities, communities of color, and first-generation immigrant families in Iowa. And indeed, for some working parents, the Labor Center as a first point of contact with the university is often important to them. The UI itself has recognized this bridge building that we do with the Diversity Catalyst Award to our staff in 2014. And also knowing that high impact research and external funding are important university priorities, we've launched several new interdisciplinary projects. And in recent years, we've dramatically expanded our signature research project, longest running research collaboration, the Iowa Labor History Oral Project. This project has now secured 4 national awards in the past 3 years, including currently a 2-year grant from the National Endowment for Humanities. So 3 minutes is just enough time to really hint at the impact of a 67-year-old center with a statewide mission. So in order to just give a tiny glimpse of what this looks like, and I don't get to brag on my staff very often in public, so this is one opportunity to do that too. Just in the past couple weeks, members of my staff convened a regional railroad workers health and safety conference on the campus here. They led an intensive 4-day arbitration training for Federal Department of Defense employees. They taught classes for a statewide conference of Iowa professional firefighters, taught a Saturday community class in Ottumwa covering workplace safety and rights of injured workers and immigration trends in Iowa's workforce. They provided guest lectures in a graduate seminar in the Department of Occupational and Environmental Health and in an employment law class in the College of Law. They taught a day-long continuing legal education seminar for Iowa attorneys, scheduled new oral history interview sessions with retired educators in Sioux City, finalized a new research publication on Iowa's changing workers' compensation system, and assisted a postdoc researcher this past week in the College of Public Health with recruiting interview subjects as part of her research on community health factors in immigrant communities. So this list reflects, I think, that in today's rapidly changing economic and legal environment, we are finding that our educational outreach is in high demand, and the subjects on which we teach and research are of growing interest to students and to the public. So the sometimes strong responses of so many in recent weeks to hearing about the Labor Center's potential jeopardy have been reminders to me of what all of us at the center know, but perhaps too rarely have said, which is that people value their access to the university and to this kind of research and education because it has truly equipped them to transform their lives, their workplaces, and their communities. And the Labor Center was clearly established long before my career at the UI began, and right now I view it as my present responsibility to ensure it remains long after I'm gone. Built by generations of Iowans, the center is a testament to the commitment of the Regents system to serving the state's working people, improving the quality of jobs in Iowa, and returning value to the economy. So my staff and I are eager to continue this discussion, and I also want to acknowledge all the various administrators here on campus who have been part of those discussions already underway about how all of us can plan together to renew this commitment. So I want to thank all of the Regents for their attention today, for your stewardship of our public universities, and I want to say I'm extremely hopeful that all of us can look forward from here to an informed, inclusive, and really creative dialogue about the Labor Center's future. So thank you.
Elizabeth Weiss.
Hi. My name is Liz Weiss. I'm a lecturer at the University of Iowa, where I teach writing for a salary of $27,500 a year. In this, I am typical of the non-tenure track faculty members who now make up a majority of the faculty and teach a majority of the courses in our College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. We generally face heavy workloads, low pay, and little to no job security. I appreciate President Harold's recent warning that we are increasingly at risk of becoming an average university. President Harold, you are absolutely right. But you didn't need to wait for U.S. News and World Report to announce that Iowa doesn't invest sufficiently in faculty resources. You could have just checked in with us. We live the reality of that insufficient investment on the first of every month when our paychecks clear, as we wait each year to find out whether we'll have jobs the following semester. Every time our course loads or class sizes suddenly increase with no increase in pay. At the start of a new semester, when we look around and tally up the losses, which of our colleagues have left for greener pastures? Which haven't had their contracts renewed without explanation or the opportunity for appeal? But I'm not here to complain or to talk doom and gloom. I come before you with genuine optimism that we at the University of Iowa can be leaders, that we can work together to forge real solutions to the labor crisis that is currently plaguing higher ed. Because I experienced that this summer. Last semester, non-tenure track faculty came together and campaigned to improve our working conditions, ultimately winning meetings with the administration. We got to work and something pretty cool happened. In a matter of weeks, we were able to move forward with a plan to expand benefits to over 70 of our colleagues. And we started to have productive discussions about a number of other important issues, from how non-tenure track faculty might participate more fully in shared governance, to ways we might prevent the misuse of short-term faculty appointment types. Unfortunately, after a summer of genuinely successful collaboration, administrators abruptly terminated our discussions. This arbitrary decision represents a missed opportunity to move the university forward, to make things better not only for non-tenure track faculty, but for our students, whose learning conditions are directly shaped by our working conditions. But we know it doesn't have to be that way. So Dean Carney and Dean Curto, if you're listening, let's do it. Let's get back in the room. Let's keep talking. Associate Provost Kriegel, let's move forward, not back. And to the Regents, it's your job to take the long view and do what's best for our public universities. And in this case, that means urging the university's leadership to immediately address the concerns non-tenure track faculty have raised. Iowa's rigged labor laws do plenty of terrible things, but we all know they don't actually prevent university administrators from talking to their employees. We knew that last spring, the first time we heard that excuse. We knew it all summer when we were working together so productively, and we know it now. And understand this. The non-tenure track faculty at the University of Iowa are going to keep fighting. We're going to fight until we have reasonable workloads, fair compensation, stable contracts, a shot at career advancement, paid parental leave, and a seat at the table, so we can keep participating in the decisions that affect the conditions under which we work and teach. We're going to keep fighting for a better university, not only for ourselves, but for our students. We hope you will join us in this fight. We welcome you when you're ready. But make no mistake, we'll be fighting either way. Thank you.
Zachary Meyer.
Hi, my name is Zachary Meyer. I'm a lecturer here. My main appointment is to teach international students that are going to be undergraduates at the university. I also coach mostly international graduate students in the Speaking Center, and for the past 3 semesters, I've taught a class of 30 mostly domestic students, a 1-credit class focusing on the topic of financial independence. When I was accepted to graduate school, I was really excited. I had been given the opportunity to begin a career of service to the people of my state and the students of my university. Or so I thought. In my time as an instructional track faculty member at the University of Iowa, I've started to question whether the leadership of the university truly have the commitment to service and learning that they claim to have. In the spring of this year, I underwent my first comprehensive review as an instructional faculty member. It quickly became apparent to me that the review process had been designed without sufficient input from instructional faculty members. My performance as a teacher was evaluated by people who had only seen my classroom for 50 minutes during an entire semester. I thought that perhaps the feedback from those who see me teach every day, my students, would help give a clearer picture of my work. Unfortunately, the description of my student evaluations that had been written in my review was filled with completely inaccurate statements. My only recourse to address these inaccuracies was to write a response letter to append to my review, which I can only hope won't be filed away, never to be seen again. Now, rather than excitement, I felt when I started this job, I mostly feel worry. I'm worried about what will happen if my review in 3 years, when I'm up for promotion, is as incomplete and inaccurate as this most recent one. I worry about whether I will have been able to understand exactly what the requirements for promotion are, especially when some administrators have answered repeated requests for clarification by saying that we need to have special sauce. I worry about what recourse I would have if the leadership of my department, who I'm very grateful for, they've been strong advocates for instructional faculty, is replaced by someone who's either cruel or incompetent, and I've seen both at other universities. And I still have no way to effectively advocate for myself. I worry about what will happen if more university policies are designed by a shared governance system that isn't really shared at all with the hundreds of non-tenure track faculty who are essential to carrying out the instructional mission of the university. I'm worried about whether my salary, which is below the average for Johnson County and decreases in real terms each year because of inflation, will be enough to support my growing family. Ultimately, at this point, I mostly worry about whether or not it was really worth it to sacrifice so much in graduate school and then as a faculty member here. Over the past 3 years, the message I've received time and again from the actions and policies of the university is that they do not prioritize instructional faculty. The only conclusion I can draw from this is at this point that providing quality instruction to the students at the University of Iowa doesn't really matter to administrators, to President Harold, and to you. I'm here to ask you to prove me wrong. Invest in the people who carry out one of the key missions of the university. We want to work with you, but we will resist anyone who tries, intentionally or not, to diminish the quality of the education that we offer students at the University of Iowa and, as has been stated here today, the people of Iowa. And we will continue to organize to win the support we and our students deserve with or without your cooperation. Thank you.
Patrick Moran.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Packy Moran. I'm entering my 5th year as a lecturer in the Sport and Recreation Management program in the Department of Health and Human Physiology. I go to work with a lot of amazing colleagues, most of whom are non-tenure track faculty, and we create, teach, and maintain a program that serves students' interests and needs. Our students are preparing to live out their dream of working in the sport and recreation industry, whether in a front office position in a spectator-driven professional sport, a department of athletics or activities in any size school or university, or in the municipal recreation realm around Iowa or throughout the region. I'm thankful for my position, I'm thankful for my colleagues, and I'm thankful that I get to help students improve our communities by living their best professional lives. My own professional life has improved over the last year, as I've been involved with the non-tenure track organizing committee. The opportunity to meet with my colleagues in other programs and department around the college has been empowering. Sharing personal stories and talking about compensation and expectations is energizing. Our group has provided an outlet for contingent faculty to voice and share their concerns, to move out of the fear that comes from isolation and the ignorance of the situation of others, to a righteous anger directed at a process of exclusion that is hurtful to the programs and students in a place we all love and a place we choose to be. Our organizing committee met with our college and central administration colleagues over the summer. You heard from Liz about how that went, and that there was a successful result to that. But something unfortunate happened after that success. Our committees received an email that the CLAS and central administration would no longer be willing to meet with us, ostensibly because of language in our public letter that expressed support for unionization as one way to have our voices heard as a group. This misrepresentation of our actions and Iowa law seems to just be a delay tactic. We're not going away as the NTT organizing committee. We want a larger role in shared governance as we are a growing part of the faculty. We wish to act out of the respect for our colleagues and the students and continue to work our part of the great mission of the University of Iowa. But the refusal of the administration to continue their meetings with us is preventing those actions and feeding only anger and resentment. I ask that the Board of Regents direct the administration of the University of Iowa to re-engage with NTT faculty and to make the following positive changes for our university. We demand opportunities for advancement and development so that we can best provide our students with the top quality education they expect and deserve. We demand longer, more stable, and more equitable contracts that recognize us as essential faculty members, not temporary workers. We demand consistent, reasonable workloads that allow us to give students the individual attention they deserve. We demand fair, livable compensation for our work and an end to stagnant wages. We demand representation and the right to participate in all decisions that affect our teaching and working conditions. We demand access to essential benefits like health insurance and retirement for all faculty. And we demand paid parental leave so that new parents can spend time with their families without suffering financially. We owe it to our students, ourselves, and the university of the next decades to be the leaders in this shifting higher educational landscape. We trust that you can do this, and we thank you.
Ryan Hall.
I want to show solidarity with my siblings here today to save our labor center and stand up for workers both at the grad student and faculty level. My name is Ryan Hall. I'm a student here at the university. I'm not from Iowa, but I moved here for a job. And it just might be that I might move away because this is nonsense. So I have served 3 years in AmeriCorps. I'm from the suburbs of Detroit. I come from an auto working family, a union household. And, you know, I know what it's like to put a good day of work in. And so do all these people here. And it's hard to work when you're overworked, when you're stressed, when you don't have resources. And what we need to do as a public institution is stand up for our most vulnerable in our state. I want to remind you of the mission statement of the Board of Regents. The mission of the Board of Regents expects learning that empowers excellence, research that increases innovation, service that fulfills public purpose, civic responsibility that enhances quality of life. And if we're talking about a public service, we're talking about the labor center. We're talking about the grad students who are overworked and underappreciated. And we're talking about the non-tenure track faculty who demand a seat at the table and who have been denied that. That's not right. And so my growing concern is that this university is plummeting because we're wasting our money. The salary was mentioned earlier. Sorry, Bruce, I think you make too much money. President Harold, sorry. So the Labor Center provides such an amazing resource to the state, to immigrants, to students. You know, over half the students that are here at the university, undergrads, don't make the Johnson County minimum wage of $10.10. And how are they able to afford the highest cost of living in the state when we have a state that denies us a minimum wage and a university that won't pay its students a fair wage? It won't pay its grad students a fair wage. It won't pay its faculty a fair wage. But who's getting paid a fair wage? The folks mismanaging the money and owing a contractor over $20 million out of a bad bid. So to me, the money seems clear. It's like a little bit over $500,000. And you know, there are so many costs that the Labor Center prevents because it offers education and training and resources. And so y'all don't get sued. And so that workers do not have these externalities of like going to the hospital because they are stressed from a job or hurt on a job because they don't have accurate training that could be offered by your very own labor center. And I want to echo that innovation and that piece that we can lead the way in the state. We can lead the way in the nation when it comes to standing up for workers, when it comes to having that excellent education that I am not receiving. My tuition went up this semester, and for what? So y'all could have a bad bid with the children's hospital? And this is not right. And I'm not alone. You know, we're meeting at like 9:30. Bruce Harold has his back to me, and everyone that is commenting, it's like the body language is very interesting. But we're at 9:30. All my peers are in class right now, paying far too much in tuition and being overworked because they have to work two jobs just to put a roof over their head. Do y'all hear me? They hear me. My 3 minutes are up, but my time is not over. Thank you very much.
President Richards, that is the last scheduled speaker that we have. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone that spoke today. We appreciate hearing your viewpoints. Thank you. The first item of business today is the consent agenda. Are there any items the board members would like to remove from the consent agenda for a separate vote? A motion and second are required to approve and receive items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I so move. Second.
Regent Bates and Regent Johnson seconded. Any discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. I'll note that for the rest of the day that Regent Dokovich is absent. Regent Bates?
Yes.
Regent Butker?
Yes.
Regent County?
Yes.
Regent Dunkel?
Yes.
Regent Johnson?
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer?
Yes.
Regent McKibben?
Yes.
Regent Richards votes yes. The motion is approved. I'm going to take a minute or two to comment as part of the board president report. Over the last several years, we have taken a comprehensive look at our public universities and their budgets, both on the expense and revenue sides. As I have said many times, there are 4 segments to funding our university properly: state appropriations, savings and reallocation, tuition, and research and funding from both public and private sources. One thing that has become clear, I believe strongly, that we cannot continue to look at these segments of funding individually. We must take a more holistic approach. We need to look at them in terms of total resources. Each of our universities need to operate effectively and efficiently. The combination of funding in these areas must equal the total resources needed for a given year. This is smart budgeting practice. Finding the right mix is the challenge, but in the end, we need to arrive at a total resources number. Regarding state appropriations, we will discuss our fiscal year 2020 request later in today's meeting. With savings and reallocations, the universities are always finding new ways to achieve this important goal. Our universities have saved or reallocated more than $125 million in the last decade. The boards and our universities' presidents take this seriously, and our enterprise has made great strides in this area. This is a priority, and we must and will continue to do even more with savings and reallocations in the future. We will continue to be good stewards of the resources we have. Regarding tuition, at our November meeting, we intend to discuss a multi-year tuition model with a baseline percentage increase for resident undergraduates for the next several years, starting with the 2019-2020 academic year. Specifics on the potential ranges of tuition increases will come at that meeting. A formal reading of the tuition rates will come during calendar year 2019. Our universities must have a level of funding that allows them to keep providing the high-quality education that our students deserve and expect. We must continue to move our universities forward. This requires resources, and we must be creative in leveraging all our assets to find ways to provide predictable, sustainable funding. We will continue to evaluate our progress, and I know that working together, we will continue to have 3 of the best public universities in the nation. At this time, I'd like to receive reports from the institutional heads. We'll begin with President Harold.
Thank you. President Richards and the members of the board, welcome back to campus. The past 3.5 weeks on our campus have actually been quite hectic, as you can see. We're settling into the rhythm of the new academic year. And as is our tradition, most of us assisted our new students into their rooms. All that is except for this one very noticeable slackard here on the right-hand side of this photo. You should know that this class was put together with strategic intent, looking towards the long-term future of our university and the long-term future of these new students. The University of Iowa growth in the size of our student body is not a strategic priority. Our main pursuit is excellence in student outcomes. As I stated 2 years ago, the University of Iowa has chosen to purposely reduce our incoming class size to ensure that we have sufficient resources per student to positively impact their outcomes. We successfully managed that again this year, and I'm very pleased with the work of our admissions team in executing this strategy. And they once again brought our most academically prepared class into our campus. Last year we had the highest academic class ever. This year we've exceeded it. And while we reduced the size and increased the academic quality of the class, we also simultaneously met our goal of having at least 20% of our incoming class be first-generation students. Size down, academic performance higher, and 20%, slightly larger than 20% first-generation students. Not bad, and my hat goes off to our admissions team for pulling off another great year. Another goal of our admissions process is to increase our graduate student population. I'm therefore pleased to report that we welcomed nearly 2,000 new graduate student and professional students to our campus this fall. As each of you know, many of our graduate and professional programs are the best in class across a broad spectrum of disciplines such as healthcare, engineering, law, as well as the humanities. These students represent the best of the best, and we're happy to bring them to our state so they can not only further their education, but also positively impact our state and its economy. At this time, I'd like to briefly touch on the U.S. News and World Report rankings that came out earlier this week. While no one wants to see their rankings fall, it's important for the board, our students, campus, Iowans, and alumni to know that we saw this coming, and we've had a plan in place for several years for addressing our significant drop. In fact, that plan is the strategic plan you approved 2 years ago, and the specific actions in it devoted to student success. We knew then and know now that we must significantly improve our first-year retention rates, as well as our 4-year graduation rates. Over the past year, I've commented publicly to the board multiple times that good is not good enough. As I've said numerous times, if performing at the national average, which is where we are, is all that we aspire to, then the efforts made by those who came before us would have been made in vain. We at Iowa are driven to compete with the best, and as such will continue to focus on our peer set and work to achieve beyond their average. With your help and sufficient resources to fund our strategic plan, I know we can impact these numbers, and even more importantly, doing so will improve the outcomes for our students. Our strategic plan is our ultimate goal and is full of unending opportunities as well as potential failure. We spend each day driving towards our strategic goals by working to make it as far as we can each day, racing closer to our goal on some days, and stepping back on others. While we seem to never completely arrive at that goal, we know we are getting closer by regularly measuring our progress. And we're able to move forward and further on our journey because of the specific action plans we put in place, coupled with the hard work of dedicated professionals, all focused on driving better outcomes for our students. However, this hard work requires sufficient support from others. As hard as we may try, we simply cannot do it alone. We need dedicated partners who share our commitment to our students' futures. Dedicated partners who share our strategic goals and are committed to funding our strategic plan, just like partners do in many other states in our nation. Make no mistake, our goal is bold, ambitious, and will require significant support from all of us, from the university, the state, our students, and their families, as well as from our faculty and staff. Yet this investment is vital if we are to, 1, accelerate our students' careers over the next 3 to 4 decades of their lives, 2, deliver the research necessary to continue improving the lives of Iowans and all Americans, and 3, meaningfully increase our region's economic growth. In order to deliver on our strategic plan, the university has been focused over the past year on developing the structures needed to deliver, deploy, and measure the actions required. One of those structures is our Path Forward team that is comprised of a broad cross-section of our campus leaders and is focused on developing specific actions that will deliver the results necessary to meet our student success, research, and economic development goals. Another structure is the way in which we allocate our scarce resources. As I've discussed many times, we've spent considerable time focused on understanding our budget and revamping the process for allocating resources so that it is transparent and predictable to the entire campus. This predictability has been jointly enhanced by some of your actions as a board and by some of the action we've taken here on campus. As an example, because of your decision to set tuition after the General Assembly has determined their fiscal support for the University of Iowa, we are now able to budget with greater certainty. In addition, as you continue discussing long-term tuition plans, we at the university level will be able to more predictably budget and be more effective stewards of our limited resources. Similarly, moving our salary decisions to January rather than the fall greatly improves our fiscal predictability. Collectively, these actions have been and will continue to be of significant assistance to our team as we work to implement this strategic plan. A key part of our strategy for improving student outcomes is increasing the academic engagement of our students, not only in class, but also when they're not in class. Over and over again, research has proven that the more our students' productively utilize their out-of-classroom time, the better their grades are and the higher their graduation rates. These so-called high-impact practices are defined as programs that engage our students across myriad activities, such as research, internships, international programs, and service learning. As you may recall, one of our metrics in our strategic plan is that 60% of our graduating seniors should report participating in 3 or more of these high-impact practices during their tenure here on our campus. Access to a broad array of undergraduate research opportunities is one of those defining characteristics and unique, I believe, in many ways to our university. Given our significant national strength in research, our students have unique opportunities from neurosciences to ship hydrology and many other areas. For example, in the College of Engineering's Hydroscience Lab, students were able to build and test a propeller prototype using software developed on our campus. And you all know our hydroscience program is one of the best, not just in this region, and not just in the U.S., but in the world. The opportunity for our students to work with world-class faculty shapes their educational experience, accelerates their career trajectory, and lets them practice real-world skills in ways that we cannot even begin to describe. According to our benchmarking, students involved in undergraduate research have higher GPAs than those who are not involved and earn more credit hours faster. It's important to note that these results were not just because those students engaged in research were better prepared in high school. In fact, their GPA, class rank, and test scores were compatible to those that didn't participate in research. So there's something magical that happens in these types of programs. And I think it touches and gets close to that issue called mentoring. They graduated faster with higher GPAs in spite of being the same in high school. The experiential learning, active engagement, and side-by-side mentoring with a faculty member paid huge dividends for our students, period. This underscores why bringing the best and brightest faculty to our campus is paramount to our long-term success. It not only enhances the research and scholarship of this institution, but it also increases the outcomes for our students. The manifestation of this relationship was illustrated several weeks ago during a retreat hosted by our Faculty Senate. We focused that retreat on increasing and enhancing undergraduate research opportunities on our campus. We shared best practices and discussed how to dramatically increase our funding for these types of programs, as well as how to support faculty through better training and general support of the entire undergraduate research program. Our entire campus is highly invested in moving forward with these practices in order to better the outcome of our students, and this culture of involving our students in research will be enhanced even further as we find adequate and more resources to deliver on the hiring plan envisioned in our strategic plan. The results of this type of hiring over the past 2 years, just to pick one example, within the Carver College of Medicine and the University Hospitals and Clinics, serves as a pretty good example. These 49 new faculty members in the past 2 years have generated $49.7 million in peer-reviewed NIH funding for the university. That's the research side. The peer-reviewed research metric is exceptionally important for an institution like ours because our ability to hire the best and brightest faculty is directly impacted by our research reputation. That's why we're so proud of our overall 16% increase in federal research last fiscal year, and in particular the 39% growth in NIH funding, which is directly tied to these 49 new colleagues. These new world-renowned faculty are not just increasing the research portfolio, however, of the university, they're also deeply invested in engaging our undergraduates in their research. The brand new Iowa Neuroscience Institute already has over 100 undergraduates doing research in its laboratories, carrying out research in the summer as well as honors research during the academic year. Similar to our hydroscience program, the Iowa Neuroscience Institute does not take a backseat to anyone else in the world, and our students there have this remarkable opportunity at their fingertips. The results of these new hires are exactly the outcome we're looking for, as access to collaborative research opportunities is a distinct characteristic, I believe, of a university like ours. In order to continue this momentum, I'm pleased that our community chose to return the office of Vice President of Research and Economic Development back to its roots. By separating research and economic development, we can once again emphasize the urgency of finding fresh and innovative ways to support research and also ways to dramatically improve our economic development. While economic is a natural development is a natural outgrowth of research, it requires different tools and skills. This structural separation will allow economic development to have a separate approach developed and executed through a team focused solely on assisting students, faculty, and our community in their startup efforts. Now, if you allow me to switch gears a little bit, as you may have heard, the university has ended our construction moratorium that was implemented last fiscal year in order to manage the disinvestment of $5.49 million from the state. That 5.49 news hit us with only 90 days left in the fiscal year. Finding $5.49 million with 90 days left is fun. No one should have to go through it. Reducing it was not easy, and often, particularly cutting costs is related to 70% of our costs being faculty and staff and people, meant we had to lay people off. Doing so in such a short time span just wasn't feasible. So in the short term, rather than take actions that weren't going to solve the problem, we decided to put a moratorium on our campus construction. And we took quite great care to make sure that we didn't stop things that were safety issues, patient issues, and the like. But by cutting that back, we were able to stop the cash flow and meet this particular goal. As of September 12th, the moratorium has been lifted, and we now need to find a longer-term answer to that. That's just a short-term stopgap. Scarce resources are not a new phenomenon at the University of Iowa or across public higher education nationally. If accepted as a fact, then, that resources will be declining, one must manage appropriately for the long term by making the most out of these limited resources. Since the state is no longer providing the same amount of support it did a generation ago, we can no longer perform various activities that the state asked us to perform in the past. We cannot let tuition, very importantly, subsidize various activities. Therefore, we must now trim or find new sources of funding for these activities. Our deans, since at least February, have been reviewing their budgets in order to determine how to best implement our new strategic plan and deliver results towards our mission with new, lower resources. This bottom-up review, led by our deans, was recommended and the administration approved the curtailment of general education fund resources to fund several centers across our campus. That general education fund now is almost 70%. made up by families and student tuition. We're very cognizant, in light of the state's generational disinvestment, that the actions we are taking, and that will create uncertainty in our community and across the state. And frankly, I'm as devastated as you are, my team is, and the group that was just with us. However, if we're to continue the success executing our strategic plan, we have no choice but to focus our scarce resources on 3 strategic priorities we laid out several years ago. 1, student success. 2, the research agenda for this institution. And finally, economic development for our state and region. Moving forward, the university is focused on funding strategies that will create better outcomes for our students and faculty that will impact the lives of Iowans. As we stated previously, this plan will require $31 million of additional resources per year, which must be shared responsibly between the university, the state, along with the students and their families. This is no different than the strategic plan we talked a year ago in the tuition review, Regent McKibben. It's no different than the strategic plan we documented a few years ago. And it's important to understand, we're not arguing that all comes from tuition. We're not arguing it should all come from the state. We're not arguing that it all should come from cost takeout and efficiencies in the university. It's a system, and all 3 of those need to work together. Of the remaining resources, we believe that we are on a path to take out about 1/3 of those through realignment, savings, and other activities internally. That also is no different than what we talked about a couple of years ago and came out of the tier efforts. Of the remaining resources, roughly $20 million, the university is requesting the state provide $7 million per year, consistently, not up and down, but predictably. This is proportional to the support the university currently receives from the state. It's no more, no less, and represents the investment the state, I believe, must make to ensure higher education system stays strong for future generations. Of the remaining, we'll work with the board to determine tuition increases that are sustainable and predictable to ensure that the experience is valuable and the degree is marketable for our students. And as I've said many times, some of you heard me say it the other evening, if we're allowed to take our tuition up, which is still at the bottom rank of our peer group, we will also we recognize the burden that will place on some of our students, and will in a proportional way increase the student financial aid for need and merit. So bring this back now to the U.S. News and World Report rankings. The allocation of resources really do matter. If you peel back the onion and look at the data more carefully, the University of Iowa does a good job in driving resources to the classroom. In fact, we are 3rd highest behind UCLA and Michigan in our peer group in the resources we provide for faculty. You may remember 3 years ago, we were at the bottom of that list. So we've done a good job of getting our salaries to where they need to be and getting the support. Such a high ranking indicates that the work we've done in these last few years and driving it is in fact working, and that we have the fiscal discipline in place to execute it. But where we're now falling behind, and in fact we're now the 3rd lowest in our peer group, is in driving resources to support our students in a more holistic way. These services, which impact student success outcomes, are exactly what our strategic plan, when funded, will address. So it comes full circle, all the way back. So I firmly believe we're on the right track to ensure excellence here at the university. Each year, this is a photo of a wonderful event we have prior to the start of classes on that Sunday. We have a convocation out on the Pentecrest in front of the old cap. We welcome these new students to our university. We remind them of the important work ahead, and we hopefully provide them with a very memorable experience of what it's like to be a Hawkeye. We then all march down the street to the president's residence And we have a wonderful hoot and holler in time for 5,000 new Hawkeyes in our campus. And this picture shows that event. And these are the students that will graduate in 4 years if we do our jobs appropriately, mentor them, tutor them, educate them in the classroom. And at the end of the day, through all of this, with all the issues that we face, let's never forget, this is why we're here. I'd be glad to take any questions you have.
Regent McKibben.
Well, as I've said before, I appreciate the fact that you've been working with all the different faculty groups and the university. When we started TIER, it was pretty clear that we needed to have the leadership from the top that brought the people up from the bottom to collaborate and work together, and that's what you're doing. That is really the process that we talked about at all three universities. I see it at all three universities, and I really appreciate it. This is a difficult time, but you're doing, I think the university and the leadership team that you have and the faculty and staff are doing everything that they can do to take care of our students and our first generation students. For that, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Regent McKibben. I'll just say in a few minutes at lunch, we will celebrate why we're here. We'll celebrate the excellence of our faculty and our staff. That's what establishes culture, recognizing the leaders that are doing the great job. So hopefully it will once again remind us of why we're here. These are difficult times for all public higher education institutions, but keeping your eyeball focused on what really matters does pay off. Thank you.
Regent Butler.
Thank you. Thank you for that great report. And I just wanted to thank you especially for reminding us every time what our core mission is, and it's student success. Number one, always. And everything else comes behind that, and I really appreciate that you continue to bring that up every time, and we all have to always remember that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I think it's always important. We're a unique system. All of our regential institutions research plays an important role. I think in student success is why we're here, but actually research does support that and is critical, as I tried to identify here today. And economic development does, and they all kind of work together as a system in this way, and that's what makes these so-called R1 institutions so unique in the United States and so important to our democracy as well as our economy. So that's why we're here. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, President Harold. Now we'd like to have President Winterstein join us.
Turn on the green buttons. One day I will learn. So certainly it's my pleasure to have the opportunity to discuss with each of you Iowa State University's resource needs for fiscal year 2020. My goal today, though, is not simply to talk about those resource needs, but also to illustrate how every tax dollar and every tuition dollar we receive is truly an investment. It's an investment that Iowa State leverages to provide an excellent return and a value to our students and to all Iowans. So we're going to keep talking about the great return Iowa State University provides. All of the Regent universities play a very distinct purpose for this state. And what makes Iowa State University different is that we are Iowa's land-grant institution. And this means that we have a fully integrated mission. We provide an exceptional experience for a very diverse student body. We conduct research that addresses both global challenges and the problems facing everyday Iowans. We drive entrepreneurship and economic growth. not only at the ISU Research Park, but across the state. And we provide extension and outreach that delivers science-based solutions throughout the 99 counties in Iowa and really creates a front door for our university. Our faculty and staff advance our mission every day through the comprehensive engagement in these 4 areas. Well, what does Iowa State University's land grant mission look like in practice? During my first months as president, I've traveled the state. I've visited with Iowans about the return on investment they receive from Iowa State University. And I'm just going to tell you a few stories about my visits out in the state. On the far left is a picture with me and Adam Gold. He's an ISU alum and president of the Dimensional Group. They do custom packaging and commercial printing. He told me how Iowa State's Center for Industrial Research and Service, or CIRRUS, was able to help his company reevaluate its plans, revamp the way it handled inventory, and develop a strategic plan. The company reported back that the work of CIRRUS improved their bottom line by $1.8 million. Adam Gold loves Iowa State University, not just as an alum, but as a business owner. This summer, CIRRUS joined forces with the Iowa Lean Consortium, and the merger is allowing the 2 organizations to align their resources to better promote business efficiencies across the state. Another great success of CIRRUS. The second photo there is really recognizing our great partnership with Cedar Rapids and a report we released in March. And it's a report on the city's food and bioprocessing industries. The report came about as a major partnership between Iowa State and Cedar Rapids that began back in 2015, and it's now guiding us on opportunities that we can bring to the table through science and innovation to help those companies be more successful. The industries in Cedar Rapids generate $4.8 billion in revenue annually. We need to keep those businesses strong and successful, and we need to keep them in Iowa. So it's a great partnership that we have with Cedar Rapids. Well, the third photo is really about the work of the farmers in the state, which are another group of entrepreneurs that are out there driving economic growth for this state. And this year, actually I'm on the, well, that's both of those slides, sorry. And this year, we've run into a serious insect problem. Are you surprised that I would bring that up? I just want to. Serious insect problem called the soybean gall midge. This insect has been found in 12 counties, and it threatens really costly damage to soybeans. So last week, we had our ISU Extension faculty and staff out in the field holding a forum at the Cass County Research Farm near Lewis to educate farmers on how we identify and deal with this pest. The value of Iowa's soybean crop is $5 billion, and Iowa's expertise in pest management is an essential resource for this important part of Iowa's economy. Today I brought a report that I just wanted to make sure that you all picked up, and in the center is just a schematic of how Extension and how our Economic Development and Industry Relations program out at the Research Park work together to engage with Iowans. Sometimes I think our reports that we give you in an official context are kind of cut and dried. I'd like to give you something with some great stories and some photos. So if you'd like a copy, they'll be up here for you to pick up. ISU's return on investment is also demonstrated through groundbreaking research that improves the lives of individuals in Iowa, the world, and provides invaluable opportunities for our students to also participate. We are proud to be a nationally recognized research-intensive university. We were recently selected to lead a national institute to address antimicrobial resistance, which is a global public health concern. At least 2 million people in the U.S. become sick every year by drug-resistant bacteria. This institute is a great example of Iowa State's culture of partnership. It includes partners from the University of Nebraska, the University of Nebraska's Medical Center, the University of Iowa, and Mayo Clinic. So this is going to be an institute housed at Iowa State, but working across state lines to really deliver answers to this critical issue. In announcing the institute last month, the vice president of the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities noted, solving big problems like antimicrobial resistance goes right to the heart of the research and engagement missions of public and land-grant universities. Well, last year alone, our faculty attracted nearly $246 million in external research funding. Our faculty are truly individual entrepreneurs, leveraging the resources we receive from the state to secure this research funding. And that funding, of course, is then reinvested back into the community. Shown up on the right side of the slide are photos of Dr. D.C. Lee and his team in the Department of Kinesiology. Dr. Lee was awarded a $3.4 million grant from the National Institutes of Health, and his research is on cardiovascular health. His team is recruiting 400 community members to test the cardiovascular benefits of weight training and aerobic exercise. The grant is being reinvested through the purchase of state-of-the-art exercise and other lab equipment, and it supports his team of over 100 individuals, including postdocs, graduate students, medical staff, as well as 55 undergraduate students. This study will inform new federal guidelines for physical activity and preventing cardiovascular disease, which is the leading cause of death in the United States. But it's also providing valuable, hands-on clinical research experience for the students involved, enriching their classroom learning and adding a unique dimension to their academic experience. Well, an ISU education truly is a mix of practical knowledge, critical thinking skills, and high-impact opportunities like research and study abroad. And it produces graduates that are very high in demand. More than 94% of our graduates secure a job in their field or continue their education within 6 months of graduation. And speaking of the rankings that have come out lately, the Wall Street Journal does a ranking about the engaged student, which measures how challenged and inspired do students feel about their experience at their university. Iowa State University was ranked 68 out of the 1,000 universities surveyed. So that's a pretty good ranking to stand up when we care so much about the student experience. Well, we also want to talk about the fact that some of our students leave Iowa State with not just a degree, but also with a company. And that's one of the ways we're enhancing the education at Iowa State by creating an undergraduate entrepreneurial ecosystem. The photo there on the left is a group of students and recent graduates who just completed the Sci Starters Entrepreneurial Program. They spent 10 weeks this summer learning how to grow their business ideas into viable companies. Their startups include a novel pet safety restraint system, the Deadeye barbecue sauce, which you can buy right now at Hy-Vee and Fairway, and Eden, my favorite new invention, which is a new shaving technology for women. But shaving, yes, shaving, that's correct, Regent McKibben. The hallmark of a great land-grant university is preparing nimble professionals, innovators, and leaders who are ready to make an immediate impact, as well as adapt to the challenges of the future. And someone who really personifies these ideals is Colin Hurd. He's a 2013 graduate, shown up there on the slide, of the College of Ag and Life Sciences. And after participating in the Ag Entrepreneurship Program as an undergraduate, he went on to complete the ISU Startup Factory Entrepreneurial Program, which helped his third company that he's founded, not his first, but his third company since he graduated from Iowa State. And those first two were both successful. He's on his third business. So Smart Ag is a company that develops farm and field technologies such as AutoCart, and it's a plug and play software system that fully automates tractors. And earlier this week, earlier this year, Smart Ag was recognized as one of the 7 ag tech startups to watch in 2018. One of the 7. Iowa entrepreneur and billionaire Harry Stein was so impressed by Smart Ag that he invested $5 million in the company. Colin Hurd is going to be a real asset to Iowa throughout his career. Well, Iowa State is proud to be the go-to source for ag and STEM professionals and a national leader in these fields. We're committed to helping the state meet its future-ready workforce goal. During the 2017 and 18 academic year, we conferred more than 8,300 degrees, a new record for Iowa State University. More than 62% of our resident graduates stay in Iowa to work after they're getting their degree. 22% of our non-residents stay. And that number is even higher for our international graduates. 29% work here in Iowa. Iowa also is responsive to the state's changing economic and workforce needs, and a few examples to share with you. We're partnering with DMAC on the Iowa Cyber Hub to fill the critical shortage of cybersecurity workers in Iowa and across the country. And we're also working to establish the first in the state Bachelor of Science in Cybersecurity Engineering degree. The other day at ribbon cutting for John Deere at the ISU Research Park, Mr. Johnson, who heads up all the cybersecurity for John Deere, came up and told me that Iowa State has the best cybersecurity program in the nation. So that's a good thing to hear from John Deere. And then in the lower right of the slide there, you can see myself and John Wickert with the representatives from Des Moines University. We signed a partnership to strengthen the pipeline for Iowa State students who want to work in the health and medical fields requiring advanced degrees. And we're looking at other collaborative opportunities with that institution in Des Moines. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, every tax dollar and tuition dollar we receive is truly an investment. We have shown you how we produce an exceptional return on that investment, and now I want to show you how we're delivering on that promise in the most effective and efficient ways possible. In accordance with the Regents tier recommendations, ISU is making significant investments to enhance the excellence of our administrative operations. With the implementation of Workday and our improved service delivery initiative in the next year, we will streamline, modernize, and improve our day-to-day operations, transforming Iowa State's business functions for the 21st century. And we will also continue to explore more efficient operations through lean partnerships. In addition, our new institutional budget management team continues to take a comprehensive look at our budget model and processes to ensure our budget is fully aligned with our strategic goals. Through our new budget process, we identified $12 million in strategic alignments this year. ISU is constantly looking for creative and innovative ways that will enable our faculty and staff to make the best use of their time and talent. And earlier this year, I asked my team to come up with ideas for saving money and improving the way we operate, and they sure did respond. I collected dozens of excellent ideas that can be or already been implemented, so we are proud of that process. We're also proud to be recognized for our lean organizational structure, but we can't continue to deliver excellence on efficiencies alone. New resources are needed to ensure we can continue to fulfill our land-grant university mission at a world-class level. This slide shows the priorities we presented last year to the Regents Tuition Task Force. They remain our key priorities for protecting quality and the student experience, and they require significant new investments. For fiscal year 2020, we will need $32.5 million in new resources through a combination of an increase to our general state appropriation, new tuition revenue, savings, and strategic realignments. We have to work to be able to make appropriate progress on all of those revenue sources. The first column shows the importance of our faculty and staff retention. To maintain our excellence, we have to have excellent faculty and staff, and they have to receive competitive salaries so that we are in the market in a positive manner. Column number 2 shows faculty and staff recruitment. We need to continue to be able to hire the faculty we need, particularly in our high demand STEM programs, and to lower our student to faculty ratio. This ratio truly is a quality indicator that many students consider when they choose a college. And additional staff are essential to support the growing needs of our students and university functions. The third column represents another critical need, and that is building maintenance and capacity. We must optimize and renovate our building capacity to accommodate faculty and staff. We must address major deferred maintenance issues that you heard about yesterday, so that our missions of teaching and research and extension are not threatened. And fourth, support for our robust need-based financial aid program. We're committed to accessibility and positive outcomes for a diverse student body. And one way that we're doing this is through our membership in the University Innovation Alliance and the opportunity to begin a completion grant program where seniors who have run out of student financial aid, we can help them through a grant program that we are busy raising funds for through our alums and donors. So we're going to grow that program. We're going to increase our graduation rate for all of our students, but especially for our first generation students, our low socioeconomic students, and our multicultural students. Iowa State remains committed to serving Iowans. We will continue to leverage every dollar we receive to provide an excellent return on investment for our students and for the state. We have been a faithful partner for Iowa and for Iowans in all 99 counties for the past 160 years, and we look forward to building a bright future together. So it's a pleasure to present to you an update about the institution, but also to talk about our financial needs for the coming year. Any questions?
Regent McKibben.
I was waiting to see if any of my other colleagues. First of all, I have beans this year. Is it any of that in Marshall County?
No, I don't think it's there yet.
Okay. You made me nervous when I saw that.
You should be nervous for next year.
Oh, no. Corn next year, so I'm okay. Well, I just wanted to congratulate you and the staff that have worked there on tier savings, as we have in all three of our great universities. And what we see up there, and hopefully what the media will report to the citizens in Iowa, is what's going on at all three of our universities. My message right now, after we've had nearly 5 years of tier savings, is that my message to the governor and the legislatures is we've done our part. It's time for you to do yours. And I will probably use that message for the next months to come. The other thing I really appreciate is that you have stayed active on pushing the vet medicine facility. I think Iowa, at least for those of us that are in agriculture and know that importance, you're staying the battle on that. You're finding a way to keep it moving, and I very much appreciate that, and I'm sure our board members do also.
Regent McKibben, thank you for those excellent comments, and I couldn't echo your comments about the vet diagnostic lab any more than you already did. This is a critical facility, really not for Iowa State as much as it is for Iowa and the nation and the world. We have to know what is happening out there in livestock and poultry operations, and if we don't understand diseases that are occurring, then we really can't prepare for the future. So thank you for those comments. We're going to do a great job this year of planning and understanding what we can get done for the dollars available, and then we'll have some more conversations after we get through that process.
Regent Butker.
Thank you. Thanks for the great presentation. I just love this part because it makes me so proud to be a part of the Iowa University system. I wanted to ask, you didn't talk at all about housing at Iowa State, and I know it was a very challenging for the last couple of years. I wondered if you could comment a little bit on that. But
certainly, we've done very well with our housing this year in terms of being able to accommodate all the students. We had a leveling off in our student numbers, a decline in our student numbers this year that had been projected for several years, something that we planned for and understood. And this really eased the pressure on housing in the Iowa State University residence hall system. We have such a great resident hall system with our advisors and the different programs that students get to experience in the residence halls. We're very proud of that. I got to go and hand out candy on the first day of classes, and you wouldn't believe how many thank you notes I got from parents. Not for the candy, they weren't thanking me for the candy, but thanking me for the great experience that their students had moving into residence halls. Great. Well, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, President Winterstein. And now President Nook.
President Richards, members of the Board of Regents, colleagues, students, and family members across the state, I would like to begin this morning by wishing you a good morning. Unfortunately, we begin by expressing our sympathies to the family and co-workers of Kevin Bly, a steam fitter at the University of Northern Iowa who died on Monday as a result of injuries incurred while working on the steam line on campus. Kevin was a 10-year employee of the University of Northern Iowa. The impact of Kevin's death has been felt across our campus and across our community. When most people think of colleges and universities, they see professors and students and perhaps advisors and deans. But there are so many people behind the scenes that make it possible for the universities of this state to provide the high quality of education our students deserve. Kevin was one of those people. He kept heat and hot water flowing to our buildings. The impact on our campus is eloquently captured by the words of Professor Scott Peters of our political science department, and I'd like to share those with you. Today, one of the people who makes it possible for me to teach and for my students to learn died on the job. What a horrible accident and sad day for the university. May his family and loved ones find comfort and peace. Please join me in remembering Kevin and his co-workers and help support him and his family by taking just a moment of silence for him and his co-workers. Thank you. It's very difficult to make a transition from something that is as tragic and as emotional as this has been for our community, and to move into celebrating the successes of our students and our faculty and staff. Our campus is a campus that, like the others in the state, are focused on the success of our students. And we have some things to share. We'll talk a little bit about a few successes, and then I'll talk about our enrollment a little bit and finish up by looking at the budget request. To begin with, one of the things that has been happening over the last decade, and it really is a focus on student success, it shows our commitment to student success. The four-year graduation rate at the University of Northern Iowa has grown from 29% in 1997 to more than 43% for the class that graduated in 2014. You'll notice in this graph that the purple bars indicate the four-year graduation rate, and the gold bars indicate the six-year graduation rate. Our six-year graduation rate has fluctuated around a pretty constant level, around 66 to 67%. But our four-year graduation rate has climbed steadily. That climb indicates that really we've become a much, much more efficient institution, moving a much larger portion of our students who are going to graduate through in 4 years instead of 5 or 6. It is an efficiency in handling and managing our budget.
It means that compared to the 1997 class, the class that graduated in 2014, an additional 280 students graduated in 4 years as opposed to taking longer than that. A tremendous, tremendous outcome. This past year, we have had a great success in cultivating resources. Our private fundraising topped $22.8 million and is up nearly $4 million from the previous year. Our Panther Scholarship Club, which supports student athletes, raised a record $1.52 in cash donations, $1.52 million in cash donations. Returning and looking at some of our tier initiatives, the Schindler Education Center this year received LEED Gold certification. When we did the renovation of the Schindler Center, we realized a 55% drop in our utility costs in that building alone, a savings of $183,000 a year in utility costs. So we've had great success in the past year in cultivating resources, both bringing in new resources and better using the resources that are available to us at the institution. Our enrollment over the last several decades has been an up and down affair, as it has been on almost every campus, but especially at the comprehensive universities. As we looked at enrollment beginning back to 2011, we started to look at this really when I first got here. But in 2011, we were at a peak of 13,168. We'd been a little higher than that back in 2001 at our all-time high of 14,000. But really since 2011, our enrollment has been in a steady decline. And that decline is caused by a lot of factors. It has become an extremely competitive environment in higher education and in the recruitment of students. We have seen that our marketing and communication has not been as strong as it should be. We continue to have a focus on quality. We will not back off on that. We also know that one of the things that has impacted especially the comprehensive colleges and universities across the country is the hot economy and the low unemployment rate. As wages inch upward, young people are more and more inclined to take that job at an entry salary and forego their education. That has impacted community colleges and the four-year comprehensive universities more significantly than almost any other sector of higher education. It certainly has impacted our numbers. But the competition with other institutions within the state and in other states has impacted us as well. As we look at our enrollment, last year we started to implement policies and procedures to enhance our enrollment. We didn't have time to impact the enrollment for this fall, but we've put things in place for a long-term increase in enrollment. We've set up a set of principles and goals. Those principles, I think, are most important. First and foremost is to ensure the quality of the student body that we have and to ensure the quality of the education that we deliver to those students. The people of Iowa deserve that. And the second is to maintain our commitment to the people of Iowa. We are an institution that serves Iowans. We are an institution that is supported by the people of Iowa. That commitment to continue to educate Iowans and to bring as many Iowa students as we always have to our institution will not change. We do need to increase our market share of Iowa's recent high school graduates. We also need to grow our non-resident undergraduate enrollment. And I want to talk about that just a little bit. The moment with Iowa's low unemployment rate, we have more job openings than we have unemployed people. More job openings than unemployed people. There are only two solutions to that, and one of them is completely unacceptable, and that is that those jobs go elsewhere. It is important that we find a way to bring people to this state. At the University of Northern Iowa, more than 85% of the students who come from the state of Iowa and get a degree from the University of Northern Iowa take their first job in Iowa. And more than 50% of the students who come to us from out of state that graduate from UNI take their first job in the state of Iowa. We are part of the solution to the problem that Iowa is facing in its economic development. Its most significant problem, a lack of population, a lack of people educated and trained to do the jobs that are available in the state. So it is essential that we look to grow our non-resident enrollment. It will help us with budgets, but that's not the reason to do it. It's to work on and focus on the economic development of this state and make sure we have the workforce to do the jobs that are in this state. We have set as a goal for the fall of 2023 a very aggressive goal of having an undergraduate and graduate enrollment of 13,500. Nearly 2,300 students more than we have this year. That will be very difficult, but it does effectively use the resources that we have, the infrastructure that we have, and that is our goal. One of the things that we will need is some help from the Regents and also from the state legislature. In an extremely competitive job market, it's imperative that we be aggressive in our marketing. It's imperative that we be clear on our price point and we get that right. We've looked at the tuition and fees and compared them of our peers that are amongst the Regent designated peers. We look to be in the middle of that peer group. However, when we look at how our tuition and fee compares to the research ones in our institutions, our research ones in our state, we find some glaring differences. What this chart shows is that for the Regent peer institutions, we have taken the tuition that is charged at our peers and subtracted from that the tuition and fees charged by the research ones in those states. And what you'd see is, with two exceptions, the College of Charleston and Marshall Universities, which are unique institutions in this group, all of the others have a difference in tuition that is significantly below the R1s. It ranges, as I said, from about, Marshall and Charleston College are more or less even, but more than $4,000 difference in those tuition rates. The average turns out, the average median are right around $2,500 difference between those. The University of Northern Iowa has a tuition that is, tuition and fees a little bit higher than Iowa State's and a little bit below the University of Iowa. And this is a competitive disadvantage for the University of Northern Iowa. As we put together our general fund budget and look for a request that we are bringing to the Regents and we will bring to the legislature, asked to be brought to the legislature, we wanted to look at our entire budget. And this is a chart that we shared last year as we were looking at putting together a 5-year tuition request. The gold bars here represent the state appropriation that we've received over the past 10 years and then this year. The light gold bars are some estimation of what we might get in the future. The dark purple bars are the tuition that we raised from residents, Iowa resident students, and the lavender bars on the top are the tuition that we raised from non-resident students. What we did in constructing our budget is to look back over 10 years and say, what was our enrollment in 2008? What do we expect our enrollment to be moving forward, and especially out at 2023, 5 years out? And then make some estimate of what we need to do to meet the needs of our students. We took a very unique approach in saying that we knew that in 2008 what our enrollment was, and what we were estimating for enrollment in 2023 is essentially the same. Then we decided, how can we move forward? What budget will we need? Total budget to educate our students. And we adopted the Consumer Price Index, that if we serve the same number of students in 2008, we will serve the same number in 2023 with exactly the same budget, inflated only for the Consumer Price Index. That, by the way, is the wrong number to use. The Consumer Price Index is based on goods and services that households use to run their households. It's loaves of bread. It's replacing a refrigerator. It's not hiring faculty. It's not keeping steam lines open. It's not running residence halls. However, it does run just a little bit below that higher education price index. We are planning to find the difference by finding additional efficiencies, continuing to operate in a more effective and efficient manner. So with that, we've put together an extremely conservative budget where we can look at what our costs each year, what our revenue needed each year is to run our university, and then find ways to work within that budget. With that, we have put together our appropriation request. which is a request for a general education fund of $99.7 million, which is an additional investment of $4 million from the state. This is the entire increase that we need to run our university. With this, we would be able to hold our tuition increases under 1%, if not at zero, which is what we would like to do. The special purpose units, we have a few at our campus that are vital to the economy of Iowa. The real estate education and STEM, all of these we're asking for status quo investment. In economic development, we're holding most of our requests there also static at the status quo. We are asking for $400,000 additional investment for the Additive Manufacturing Center, which is part of the Metal Casting Center. We do have some ITC modernization, that is the Industrial Technology Center. Again, that's an infrastructure request of $38 million investment from the state and an additional $4 million that will be raised privately. There was supposed to be one more slide, and I want to talk about it just a little bit. I want to thank you as servant leaders for your work within this state. Servant leadership is really characterized by leaders such as yourself and the people sitting behind me and faculty members across the state who really pitch in and do more than what their position and title describes. The Regents have been very good at that. The image that I have is one that I wish I had up here, but probably is a good thing I don't, because Milt isn't here to defend himself. But earlier this year, Milt and former Waterloo Mayor Tim Hurley were very busy on this very campus helping U of I students move in, freshmen move in. And there's this really nice picture of two engineers trying to put together a student desk for their grandchildren as they moved in to this institution. But it does show the level of commitment that the presidents, their vice presidents, other leaders across our campus commit to our students every day, that you as Regents commit to our students, to the faculty, and to the staff of this state, to the people of the state every day. So thank you for your commitment. Thank you for the work that you do and your support of higher education and the students of the state of Iowa. Be happy to take any questions.
I have one quick
Regent
question
Johnson.
for you. Thank you, President Richards. You mentioned in an earlier slide that you have a fall 2023 goal of having 13,500 students, and then you also spoke about possibly pulling these students from out of state and the value that they bring to our campuses. Are there specific things that you're trying to do to target these students? Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because, I mean, then looking at your budget and everything, it's definitely dependent on these students, and I think they're so important, and I completely see the value of having them. So if you could just expand a little more.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about the things we've put in place simply to recruit more students, both in state and out of state. So one of the things that we started to do right away is to bring more students onto our campus at a much earlier age. We have worked with the University of Northern Iowa Center for Urban Education to reach out to school districts really around the state and help them. They've got some contacts in those institutions, in those high schools in particular, with guidance counselors, with teachers, to put together cohorts of students, maybe 50 to 100, to come to campus for campus visits. The students they're bringing to our campus would typically not come to our campus without this special invite. We have more than 2,500 students already signed up to visit our campus this year. So it is a big step forward. We are improving and implementing an integrated marketing and communication program on our campus, changing the way university relations works to be more integrated so that the messages that come out in news reports and news releases are tied to the things in our admissions cycle so that we build support. We're reaching deeper into the high schools instead of recruiting just seniors, working to bring sophomores and juniors to our campus. There's a few reasons to do that. If you start with freshmen and sophomores and even deeper, 8th graders, 7th graders, those students will build a relationship with your university and are more likely to attend. More importantly, the research shows time and time again, a student that has been in contact with you for 3 years before they matriculate have a much higher retention and graduation rate. they feel like they are part of the Panther family when they get there and are much more likely to persist to graduation. So those are essential. We have increased our outreach to several states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri. We have seen some results of those outreaches. We have had the largest number of students from Minnesota actually come to us this year. We doubled the number of applications from Minnesota students. Now, we went from 40 to 47 Minnesota students, but that's a big percentage, but I want you to know the real numbers. But those are only the seniors that have seen it. As we continue to work in these different markets and they hear about the University of Northern Iowa, more and more students will know of us. We have some particular opportunities in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois that are important, and we're trying to take advantage of those and build some ways to communicate with those students much more directly and their families. So those are a few of the things that we're working on to start to address those issues. We're also looking out and reaching out, especially to Western Iowa. We know that many of those students choose to go out of state, and what I am worried about is that when they choose to go out of state, they choose to live in those states once they've left the state of Iowa. We need them in the state. We need them as productive employees in our state. So it's important that we reach out to Western Iowa in particular. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any other questions from President Duck?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Superintendent Gettle.
What's this guy in?
We're going to have a brief recess. If you would please
We'll carry on here.
carry on.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, President Richards, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to give you an update on some of the activities of the special schools and information about our FY 2020 appropriations request. We continue to plan for implementation of additional security measures on the ISD campus. Prior to the start of this school year, keycard access points were installed in the LEAD multi-purpose center and the careers building. This includes single points of entry with video surveillance so that all visitors are identified and their purposes for entering the building are verified before they're allowed into the buildings. There are single points of entry with keycard access for all the buildings where student programming occurs. This includes the dormitories. We continue to add cameras for video surveillance across campus. There are 56 different views strategically located to monitor building access and vehicle traffic entering and leaving campus. And as the Property and Facilities Committee heard yesterday, we're upgrading the fire control panel in the careers building, and this new system will include an integrated system of visual and audio alerts that aligns with our standard response protocol and is accessible to individuals with deafness and blindness. As Assistant Administrator John Kuhl was here yesterday, didn't address this, but we want to let you know that our Safety Committee has been meeting with a consultant from Green Hills AEA to develop our emergency operations plan as required by Senate File 2364 for public schools. The EOP includes plans for training and procedures during and following an emergency. Plans address fire emergencies and environmental hazards as well as natural disasters and active shooter scenarios on campuses and within the individual buildings where students live and are educated. The EOP was developed in cooperation with a number of emergency, law enforcement, and healthcare partners in the Council Bluffs community, and it will be fully implemented by the end of this current school year. Other components of our emergency operations plan include a crisis management plan that gives our staff specific directions, step-by-step directions on what to do in each particular case where there's an emergency. And then we have a standard response protocol that we trained on last year that ensures we are using common concepts and shared vocabulary when we're talking with our parents, staff, students, and the emergency personnel, emergency response personnel. And then I wanted to report that as of June 30th, all instructional materials and equipment from the Iowa Braille and Sight Saving School have been moved to the campus at ISD. We located them in our careers building, and we call it the Vision Resource Center. During the past school year, about 7,800 square feet of space was renovated to create functional and economical facilities to provide a new home for the professional library, the APH materials, technology and assistive device center, math, science, curriculum, and instructional materials, storage areas for the low vision clinic, and ECC recreational program, that's expanded core curriculum, and workspaces for our statewide consultants when they're on our campus. And then at your table, I just wanted to point out that I've left copies of ISD's year in review. It's from the past school year. As you look through the Hawkeye, please take note of our progress toward our strategic academic goals, interesting facts and information about ISD services, and highlights about the many achievements of our students in this last school year. Now I want to shift to give you some information about our FY 2020 appropriations request. The special schools are requesting board approval of the FY 20 legislative appropriations request in the amount of $14.73 million. This request includes continuation of the reoccurring appropriation for operations. It's $14.16 million from FY19, and incremental funding for both schools totaling $567,000. That would be $400,000 for ISD and $167,000 for IBSSS. This level of funding will allow the special schools to continue to provide high quality, individualized education opportunities for students at ISD and across the state. ISD and IBSSS budgets rely heavily on state funding for our overall operations. The mission of the Iowa School for the Deaf and Iowa Braille and Sight Saving School are to prepare students for a life of independent living as literate, contributing members of their communities. The request funds also will support our strategic goals to provide this high-quality, standards-based assessment and instruction, to increase the number of students meeting or exceeding grade-level benchmarks for reading and math. The FY20 appropriations will also support extended learning opportunities in the expanded core and critical access to a language-rich environment and early learning language development for students enrolled at the Iowa School for the Deaf. Measurable progress has been made toward achieving strategic goals. From fall to spring this past school year, kindergarten through third grade students served by Iowa Educational Services for the blind, visually impaired staff were assessed with FAST. It's a formative assessment system, and increased proficiencies toward grade level benchmarks were measured at 4.3%. That's from 29% to 33.3% over the year. The number of ISD students in grades 3 through 11 assessed with measures of academic progress, we call that the MAP assessment, making growth in reading increased by 9%, and the growth in the area of math was 14%. I say they're making growth. Not talking about benchmarks here, but just making growth. Our goal there is that all students will make growth every year and that they don't level off in their learning, but they continue to go beyond what is nationally an average reading level for deaf students at about 4th grade by graduation. Attendance matters, and while our average daily attendance has been increasing over the last 2 years, ISD implemented a program to provide better connection, networking with parents to communicate the need for attendance, and this last year, perfect attendance, which we celebrate, and isn't talked about a whole lot anymore, but we celebrated it. The perfect attendance for trimesters increased from 10 students having perfect attendance in any trimester to 51 students. So you can make an impact there if you communicate more with parents and work to meet the needs of their students. We had the number of students served on IEPs by ISBVI, and that increased 13% last year, 13% to 570 students with IEP services. The enrollment on ISD's campus has increased from last fall to the beginning of this school year by 11%. We're up to 90 students, the deaf or hard of hearing, and 8 blind visually impaired students enrolled in our 4+ program, and we have students that are still enrolling this week and probably next week also. Trend data shows that about 85% of students who participated in ISD's 4+ program over the last 5 years, after 3 years exiting the program, were enrolled in post-secondary education training, or they were employed. And that's an area that we can make great progress in helping kids to become successful after high school. All measures of utilization of our Vision Resource Center were either steady or increasing. Participation in our camps and extended learning opportunities increased, so to where we had 780 total participants this last year in those activities. And the approval of the appropriation request will allow us to continue these improvement initiatives and continue to support students to become literate, independent, and contributing members of our society. And finally, I wanted to talk about the need for the appropriations request and the incremental funding to support our recruitment and retention of highly trained and specialized faculty that we need to meet the educational needs of our students. All of our teachers must have preparation in their assigned disability area, but many of them also need endorsements in core curriculum or grade level content. And reporting on a shortage of teachers, Deaf Education, which is a national clearinghouse for information in the field of deaf ed, reported the shortage of teachers for these students is one of both quantity and diversity, and some teachers do not have appropriate certification or licensure. It is increasingly difficult to gather sufficient educational resources to meet the needs of widely dispersed, ethically diverse students, many of whom have a secondary disability. So the problem that we experience here in Iowa shared across the country, and the competition that we have for recruiting teachers is shared by every state across the country. At the end of the school year, this last school year, the special schools had 15 faculty vacancies, and that was due primarily to retirements. We were successful in filling all but 2, and we were successful in filling all but 2 positions because, and this is why we do make some progress here, is because we have funding to provide tuition support for the Grow Your Own program. And I've talked about this before, it's where we hire good, grounded special education teachers in our communities here in Iowa. They want to work with the population of students we serve, and we help them reimburse tuition costs to get the endorsements they need to teach blind or deaf children. And also because our salaries have been competitive with school districts across Iowa, but successive years without the ability to match increases offered by the local districts has eroded that recruiting advantage. The incremental funding in this request will help to address this it really is a critical issue. I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide this information this morning about Special Schools FY20 appropriations requests, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Regent Butker.
Thank you. Thank you for your report, Superintendent Gettle. Help me understand this one chart on the page with the appropriations, measures of progress. The achievement is up 4.3%, and ISD growth up 14% math and 9% reading. Is that the number of students, or is that the level of improvement?
That's the number of students. And when we do our strategic plan update for you folks in this next month, I think it is, we'll have some more data to flesh this out, but it's that we have gone from, I don't have that with me now, but starting at somewhere around 40% of those students in those 3 to 11th grade groups, making growth upwards now of close to over 80%, 86% of the students making growth every year, year over year.
And that's substantial improvement.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Regent Lindenmeyer.
I have a rookie question. How many full-time and part-time faculty do you have?
Sure. At Iowa Educational Services for Blind Visually Impaired, our faculty are comprised of teachers of the visually impaired and orientation mobility specialists, and then we have a cadre of 9 consultants who are trained as teachers, but they provide professional development, support, and consultation technical assistance to the staff, our staff, public school staff, parents. But there are 45 teachers and orientation mobility specialists at IES-BVI, and they serve approximately 690 students this last year across Iowa. Then at the Iowa School for the Deaf, we have 27 faculty. They're full-time. Some of those are counseling positions or school psychologist positions or speech therapist positions. I think that group makes five of the 27. So we have 21, 22 teachers, classroom teachers.
Okay. And then as a follow-up question to your enrollment, you said you were up 11%. What do you attribute that to? And historically, does your enrollment fluctuate just based on demographics in the state, or what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, that's a good question, Regent Lindemeyer. I think because we're working with such small numbers, we have seen maybe trends where if the public school enrollment starts to decline or drop off, we'll see a relative decline also. But the number of students, and I was looking back at 2006, the number of kids on campus at ISD was 106, and we're just under 100 right now. So it's fluctuated maybe 15 students over that period of time, but we're past the days where we had 450 students because of a rubella outbreak in the 60s to now where this is probably the demographic that we would see given a population in the state of a little over 3 million people. There are certainly many more kids that could benefit from those intensive services at ISD, but we're running somewhere, give or take, 15 students out of 100 off that 100 number of enrollment.
Thank you,
Yep, thank you.
I believe that we're going to, on item G, presentation of expression, freedom of expression. I think we're going to hold that presentation to another meeting based on timing and what's happened today. So we will have that. It'll just be another day. And I think we're going to take a break for lunch. Yeah. Oh, gee. Brad, I forgot about you.
Sorry, Brad.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's only the most important thing.
It's easy to do.
Yeah. Well, it's lunch or Brad. I don't know.
This won't take long.
Brad Berg. I'm sorry.
Thank you, President Richards. For the board's consideration today is the operating and other appropriations request for FY 2020. The total $628 million as provided in the docket. As we just heard from the presidents and the superintendent, the request includes an incremental $18 million for the general university lines, additional funding for the special schools, and a new economic development initiative in the biosciences arena. And with that, I would be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
He's getting my script. We're a little off here. Thank you. If there are no further questions, motion and second are required to approve the operating appropriations request for fiscal year 2020 as outlined in the docket item, and to authorize actions by designated region staff to seek collaboration and partnerships between region institutions and other sectors of state government. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Regent County and a second by Regent Butker. Any discussion? We'll initiate a roll call vote. Regent Bates.
Yes.
Regent Butker.
Yes.
Regent County.
Yes.
Regent Dunkel.
Yes.
Regent Johnson.
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer.
Yes.
Regent McKibben.
Yes.
Regent Richards votes yes. The motion is approved. Now we can go to lunch.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, we will. We're going to have lunch, and then after lunch there will be a closed session. then we have no further open session. We, of course, will reconvene and open and then go to closed. Yeah. So break for lunch now.